I am Elena Marchetti. I am 43 years old, and this is my true story from a small city outside Milan. If someone had told me on the morning of my 15th wedding anniversary that I would one day sit across a mahogany desk from the man who destroyed my life and hand him a termination letter with my signature at the bottom, I would have said they were dreaming. But life has a strange way of completing circles you never drew. David and I met in university. I was studying hospitality management. He was the finance student who helped me pass statistics by explaining everything in football metaphors. We built each other. That's the phrase I used back then. We built each other. After graduation, I started a small catering company out of my mother's kitchen. David handled the books. I handled the food. Within 5 years, we had a commercial kitchen, 12 employees, and contracts with 3 of the largest corporate campuses in Lombardy. We got married in the garden of the first restaurant I ever opened. David's vows mentioned the spreadsheets. Everyone laughed. It was very us. For a long time, that was enough. The trouble, if you can call it that, started quietly. The way these things always do. David began staying late at the office, not occasionally, routinely. He stopped asking about new menu ideas. He stopped coming to tastings. When I'd walk into the room while he was on his laptop, he'd tilt the screen away. I told myself it was stress. The business was growing fast. We had just opened a second location. The pressure was real. Then one of my pastry chefs, a woman named Francesca, who had been with me since the mother's kitchen days, pulled me aside after a Friday service. "Elena," she said, holding my wrist, "there is something you need to see." She handed me a photograph. It was David, at a cafe across town. His hand was resting on another woman's knee. The woman was wearing a ring. The ring was not mine. The photograph was dated 3 months earlier. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream. I sat in the empty restaurant at table 7, our table, and I counted. 14 years of marriage, 17 years of building a life. One photograph. But what I didn't know, what Francesca couldn't have photographed, was that David had been planning his exit for 2 years. Not just from me, from everything. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He just looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger, not guilt, something colder. "You should check the accounts," he said. And then he walked out. The next morning, I sat in our office and opened the ledgers. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. David had been siphoning money from the business for 18 months. Supplier payments redirected. Invoices fabricated, tax obligations ignored. He hadn't just been unfaithful to me. He'd been hollowing out the company I had built while I was still standing in it, stirring risotto and greeting customers by name. The debt was just under 400,000 euros. The second location's lease was 3 months behind. The catering contracts, the ones David had been managing, were voided due to missed deliverables I never knew about. Within 6 weeks, I closed the second location. Within 4 months, I filed for bankruptcy. David moved to Rome. With her, with the ring, with what was left of our savings. I moved back into my mother's apartment. At 38 years old, I was sleeping in the same twin bed I'd slept in as a teenager, staring at the same crack in the ceiling, wondering how someone who once knew everything about you could become a stranger with your bank account number. Grief is a strange teacher. At first, it only teaches you how to survive the day. But if you stay with it long enough, it teaches you something else entirely. It teaches you what you're actually made of. I took a job as a line cook in a hotel kitchen, minimum wage. I was 38 and starting over, standing next to 22-year-olds who had never run their own restaurant. Nobody knew I used to sign their manager's paycheck. At night, I studied finance. The thing that was supposed to break me, the numbers, the books, the accounting David had always handled, I decided it would become my weapon. It took me 3 years. 3 years of line cook shifts and night classes. 3 years of rebuilding my credit, my confidence, and my understanding of exactly how David had dismantled my life. By the end, I didn't just understand finance, I understood him. I could trace every decision he had made, every account he had manipulated, every lie he had told. I could see the architecture of his betrayal like a blueprint. And I realized something. David's entire career had been built on my business. When he applied for his next position, a senior role at a commercial bank in Rome, his resume was full of my company's financial records, my growth numbers, my expansion. He had used me to build his credibility, and now he was using that credibility to climb higher. So I made a phone call. The call was to an old university friend, a man named Marco who had gone into banking regulation and now sat on the board of 3 financial institutions. "Do you remember David?" I asked. There was a long pause. "Everyone remembers David," he said. I told Marco the truth, not the emotional truth, the financial one, the numbers, the shell companies David had used, the tax fraud, the misappropriation of business funds. I had spent 3 years documenting it all. 3 weeks later, Marco called back. "Elena," he said, "the bank David works for is being acquired. I'm on the acquisition committee. There's a senior position opening, head of commercial lending. It's his." I didn't understand. "That's good for him." "No," Marco said, "it's his if we hire internally. But the board wants fresh leadership, someone with real business experience, someone who understands both operations and finance." "Marco," I said slowly, "I have a bankruptcy on my record." "You have a bankruptcy that was caused by fraud," he said, "and you have 3 years of documentation proving it, plus a degree in hospitality management, 14 years as a business owner, and recently completed certification in financial accounting. You're not damaged goods, Elena. You're exactly what this bank needs." The pause that followed was the longest of my life. "Send me the application," I said. I started at the bank on a Monday in September. David didn't know. His department had been told there was a new director. They hadn't been told who. I remember walking into that building, the marble floors, the glass elevators, the espresso bar in the lobby that smelled exactly like every bank lobby in Italy. I wore a grey suit, low heels, my mother's pearl earrings. I wanted to look like someone who belonged there, because for the first time in years, I did. The HR director escorted me to my office. David's office was 3 doors down. At 10:15 a.m., there was a meeting, all department heads. The CEO introduced me. I stood up. I looked directly at David. His face didn't just go white. It collapsed, like a building demolition in slow motion. Every assumption he had ever made about me, that I was weak, that I was broken, that I was gone, dissolved in the space between 2 heartbeats. "Elena Marchetti will be overseeing all commercial lending operations," the CEO said, "including personnel restructuring." That last word, restructuring, landed on David like a stone. After the meeting, he came to my office. He stood in the doorway, the same man who had told me to check the accounts and walked out of my life forever. "Elena," he said. His voice was smaller than I remembered. I didn't stand. I didn't raise my voice. "David," I said, "close the door on your way out." 2 weeks later, his position was eliminated. Not out of revenge, out of restructuring. The same word he had used when he'd gutted my company. Only this time, I was the one holding the pen. That's the lesson. Sometimes the person who tries to destroy you doesn't realize they're giving you the only thing you actually needed. Not rage, not even revenge. Competence. David spent 17 years making me dependent on him, and when he left, I had to become everything he had pretended to be for me. The numbers person, the strategist, the one who understood how money actually moves through the world. He didn't just lose his job that day in September. He lost the version of himself that believed he was smarter than me, the version that looked at a woman who built a company from nothing and saw someone he could outmaneuver. I still cook, on Sundays mostly, for my mother, for Marco, who has become more than a friend,
Elena.
for the small group of people who never doubted me, even when I doubted myself. And sometimes, when I'm standing in my kitchen, the one in my own apartment now, not my mother's, I think about table 7 in the old restaurant, the candle, the rain, the photograph, and I realize that woman didn't lose everything that night. She just lost the parts that weren't really hers to begin with. Follow Voice of Uncle Adam for more unforgettable stories. Real people, real betrayal, real karma. Subscribe now so you never miss what comes next.